shedding light on the epistolary relationship between Thomas Jefferson and Consul James Maury. So now I will call upon Brian Nilsson to come up and tell us about the Maury Family Bible and its significance. So Brian, please.
Thanks very much. At some point this morning, I want to thank our host, Adriana Tay and Jeff Looney. Thank you. It was good to see you both again. I met with them about this time last year as I was en route to our annual meeting in Louisville, where we had an opportunity to share the Bible and have a look at it. And Jeff, thank you for your comments. It's particularly interesting in one of the letters that you mentioned, is Maury's letter to Madison. He talks about the five of the school chums that grew up together. And that's the page we turned the Bible to, where he's listed the five of them together, so when you're looking at it afterwards. So also want to thank Mary Bourgeon for all the work that she's done in working with the library to make all of this happen. So just a few brief remarks about the society. I think many of you may know this. I mean, our origins go back to the writings of Jacques Fontaine, who was a French Huguenot refugee who fled France, went to England briefly, and then went to Ireland. In his elder years, he wrote his memoirs, living in Dublin, for his children. And at the end of those, of his memoirs, he wrote on the last day as he was finishing them on June 21st, 1722, he asked that he hoped that the memoirs would be something that his descendants would use and draw from to be able to maintain a union together. We celebrated that 300-year anniversary of him writing that and the completion of his memoirs last year at last year's annual meeting. Last year was also our 50th anniversary of us having our annual meeting weekends. So we're also a 501c3. We're a nonprofit organization. We are comprised predominantly of the descendants of five of Jacques Fontaine's children, four of whom settled permanently in colonial Virginia. His son John Fontaine was the first pioneer, but he ended up living in England in later life. The other four were James, Peter, and Frances Fontaine, and then their sister Marianne Fontaine, who married Matthew Maury, who was also a French Huguenot refugee. And so, because she married a Maury, that's how we've come to have our name of the Fontaine-Maury Society. We are not limited to family members. We are open to anyone who has an interest in the Fontaine and Maury families and in French Huguenot history. And so we welcome all of you that wish to join. That said, we are here today to talk about the Bible. This Bible belonged to Marianne Fontaine Maury's grandson, James Maury, who was born in 1746 and died in 1840. As already discussed today, he was appointed by President Washington as the first Consul General for the United States. I was living in Liverpool. And so this Bible, as best we can tell, James Maury came to own this Bible by 1810 because he begins writing in the Bible. There's 8 pages of handwritten comments in the Bible about himself, about his immediate family, his extended family, and his ancestry. He dates it each time he adds something to the Bible, and the first time he wrote in the Bible was in 1810. The Bible was already relatively old. It was printed in Oxford, England in 1769. It means that this is today 254 years old. And what's ironic, I think, particularly, is that as we gather here in Charlottesville, is that this is not the first time this Bible has come to a family gathering in Charlottesville. And it's also not the first time that after the family got together and looked at this Bible, there was a decision made to transfer the ownership from one part of the family to the other part of the family so that the Bible would be preserved and that it actually was shared and seen by the family. And so that came to be because in 1828, James Maury's oldest son, James Siffrin Maury, had moved to Charlottesville in 1819, was a farmer here in this community, went back to visit his dad in Liverpool in 1828, and his father decided to give him this Bible. And so that's written on the title page of the Bible. And so James Siffrin was there for a little over a year. He comes home, he gets back to Charlottesville in July of 1829, and brings the Bible with him. So the Bible comes to Charlottesville. The following year, the family gathers here in Charlottesville. Among those who came was one of James's younger brothers, William Maury, who was born in 1799, a couple of years younger than James Siffrin. William Maury lived over in Fredericksburg, so that's about about 70 miles or so, sort of northeast of here. Comes to a family gathering in 1830. Everybody, like today, was able to review the Bible, and James decided to give the Bible to his brother. So William was already married. He already had 2 children. He ended up having more children. James particularly had a difficult life. He had health issues an entire life. He ultimately died unmarried in a hospital in Baltimore in 1864. So I guess he was thinking ahead and ensuring that the Bible would be preserved. And so the Bible then was handed down through the William Morey family. So it comes down from over the generations. It comes to Virginia Morey, who was born in 1903. And so then we have a little bit another happenstance in that Virginia and her sister and her parents were living in Darien, Connecticut in the 1920s when another Morey family comes to town. And that was the family of the woman who owned this Bible, was a Brooke Morey Dagini, who actually owned the Bible, lives in Maine, and donated it to us back in 2019. At the time when she donated it, she said that it has a lot of names in it, but it was not names that she recognized. And so they wanted to ensure that the Bible was preserved and wanted to have a larger family opportunity for the family to see it. So we have Brooke to thank for us actually having the Bible and coming into our possession. Unfortunately, she wasn't able to come and join us here this weekend. But Brooke's family, she had inherited the Bible from her father, who was Henry Brooke Morey, who died in 1999. And again, she was a little puzzled because she didn't recognize the names. And so their family line goes back to a man named Mr. Fontaine Morey, who was born in 1761. And he was a younger brother of Consul General James. And so the Bible somehow jumped lines from one son to another son many years later. And so the answer to that is that Brooke's grandparents moved to Darien, Connecticut in the 1920s. And as they got settled, the neighbor said, there's another Morey family in the neighborhood that you should go and meet. So looking in the city directories, we were able to determine they lived within a mile of one another. So the 2 families met. And so Moreys meet Moreys. And as it turns out, Virginia was in her early teens. Henry, who was Brooke's father, was still relatively young. He was still a child. But they were 4th cousins, but they became close friends, and they became friends for life. And so many years later, when Virginia died in 1978, she had not married, she had no children, she left the Bible to her friend and her 4th cousin, Henry. And so that's how the Bible jumped lines and moved from one line to the other line. And so later, when Brooke inherited the Bible, that explained why she doesn't recognize the names. It's because it was the documenting down the William Morey line and not her family's line. So with that, then her donating us is particularly fortunate in that I've already mentioned that this is not the first time we've gathered here with the Bible. I find it particularly ironic as we're here today to again review the Bible, to share the Bible with all of us, and then to make a donation to the Jefferson Library so that it's preserved, so that we'll be able to review it. Researchers will be able to use it, and family members who come to the library can see it. It's particularly fitting that we met this weekend because when James Siffrin Morey gave the Bible to William Morey, it was 193 years ago this weekend. It was October 12th, 1830. So with that, I think the legal paperwork was done this morning for the signing, for the making it all official to donate. And so with that, I think we officially will happy to, on behalf of the society, present the Bible to the Jefferson Library. So thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, Brian. So now I'll just call upon Mary to come on up. And this, as Brian said, this morning, Morey Bible, and she will now formalize the gift. So, would you like to say anything?
I'm just so happy that we're all here. We've had a good turnout. We've had a good weekend. And this is a beautiful thing for us to be able to do, preserving history and preserving our history in such a beautiful place.
Would you like to take a picture or anything like that? Sure.